The wind howled through the narrow coastline as dark clouds gathered above the vast sea. It was a day no fisherman dared to set sail, but Raghav had no choice. The small village he called home had been struggling for weeks. The fish had become scarce, and his family had barely enough to eat. His old wooden boat creaked under the weight of the heavy waves as he cast his net, praying for luck. Then, through the deafening roar of the storm, he heard it, a desperate cry for help. Raghav turned sharply, his eyes scanning the violent waves. At first, he saw nothing but water churning angrily, but then, there it was, a man struggling against the relentless sea, his hands flailing before vanishing beneath the surface. Raghav grabbed a rope without a second thought and dived into the icy water. The waves tossed him like a mere toy, but Raghav was strong. Years of battling the sea had made him resilient. He kicked forward, reaching the drowning man just as he sank again. Raghav wrapped his arms around him and swam with all his might, dragging him back toward the boat. His muscles burned, his breath came in gasps, but he didn't let go. Finally, he managed to hoist the unconscious man onto the boat. He was dressed in fine silk, though it was soaked and torn. A golden ring, now dull and covered in salt, rested on his finger. "Who are you?" Raghav whispered, shaking the man gently. But the stranger did not answer. The storm raged on as Raghav rowed back to shore, the boat nearly tipping over with every monstrous wave. By the time he reached the beach, he was exhausted. He carried the man over his shoulder and rushed him to his small hut. It took hours for the man to wake. When he did, his dark eyes darted around the dimly lit hut, confusion etched into his regal features. "You're safe now," Raghav said, offering him a warm drink. "I found you drowning in the sea." The stranger's hands trembled as he took the cup. You saved my life." Raghav smiled humbly. "It was the right thing to do." The man studied him for a long moment, then glanced at his own clothes, now dry but still bearing the unmistakable quality of nobility. "Do you know who I am?" Raghav shook his head. The stranger hesitated, then leaned in. "I am King Viren." "How did you end up in the sea?" Raghav asked, stunned. King Viren sighed. "I was betrayed. My own men, they tried to kill me. I was sailing back from a diplomatic visit when my most trusted advisor led a rebellion. They threw me overboard thinking the storm would finish what they started. You must return," Raghav said urgently. "If they believe you're dead, your enemies will take the throne. But I have no army, no weapons, no way to fight back." Raghav gathered the strongest men in his village, those who had nothing to lose but everything to gain from a just ruler returning to power. Together, they disguised the king in humble clothes and set out toward the capital. The journey was long and dangerous. Guards loyal to the traitorous advisor patrolled the roads, forcing them to take hidden paths through dense forests and treacherous mountains. Finally, after days of travel, they reached the outskirts of the palace. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped through the underground canals that led to the palace walls. Inside, they found that the false king, Viren's treacherous advisor, had already claimed the throne. The palace guards were many, but Raghav and his men fought with the strength of those who had lived their entire lives battling the harshness of nature. They moved swiftly, taking out guards one by one until they reached the grand hall. There, the false king sat upon the throne, draped in golden robes that did not belong to him. But when Viren stepped forward, his presence was undeniable. Gasps filled the hall as nobles and soldiers turned in shock. "The true king has returned," Raghav declared. The rightful king had reclaimed his throne. The next morning, as the sun rose over the palace, King Viren stood before Raghav. "You did not know who I was when you saved me," he said. "Yet you risked everything for a stranger." Raghav smiled. "A life is a life, whether rich or poor." Under King Viren's orders, the small fishing village was transformed. New boats, better homes, and schools for the children were built. No family went hungry again. And Raghav? He remained humble, choosing to stay by the sea he loved. But from that day forward, he was known not just as a fisherman, but as the man who saved a king. Time passed, but the tale of the kind fisherman was never forgotten.